Hello there, this is Millennium TV. Thank you so much for tuning in. Time now for Millennium Tonight. My name is Ruben Mwanza and I'm your host on the program. Tonight we'll be talking about the Bill 13, which has since been deferred. And of course, we'll just talk about that in relation to, what the people expect even during this deferment period, and also what people make of it. As I'm sure you've seen that many NGOs have actually denied this bill and they're calling for its permanent withdrawal. To help us understand this Bill 13, in studio I'm joined by Kamfinsa constituency MP, Mr. Christopher Kangómbe. Honorable, good evening.
Good evening, Ruben. Good evening to our dear viewers from across the country.
Indeed.
Delighted to be here once again.
Great. Yes, we are discussing Bill 13, which has been deferred. First of all, before we get to the deferment, what do you make of this bill, Honorable?
My personal view? Well, at first when we heard that there was a bill that had been drafted at Justice, and when a bill is drafted, there's normally what we call a cab memo. So a memo moves to cabinet to say there's this bill that has to go to parliament. Is cabinet in agreement? Is the context clear? Is the wording okay? And cabinet okayed the draft bill. And remember, whenever cabinet holds a cabinet meeting, there are resolutions. So one of the resolutions was to present in Parliament a bill that would empower the Chief Registrar to cancel title, among other things. So at that stage, the assumption that some of us made was that adequate consultation had been done. So most of us didn't pay attention to what really was the content of the amendment, because it's not a new law, it's an amendment to an existing law.
Right.
So my first impression initially was that the law would actually strengthen certain aspects of land ownership. It would ensure that certain aspects to do with land are well managed, because there are two laws. There's the there's a law that administers land, and then there's the Lands and Deeds Register law, which are two different laws. So my first reaction was that we're going to have a law that will strengthen, that will deal with the aspects that are key. But then when the bill was presented in Parliament, and then stakeholders who had paid attention to the amendment, the powers that would be given to the Chief Registrar, I think they raised issues. So what is my view? My general view is that we can actually make good laws in Parliament. And one of the ingredients of making good laws is by ensuring not everyone will agree, but there must be a semblance of consensus.
Right.
There must be something that gives you a picture that the media, as a stakeholder, there was engagement. The farmers were engaged. All these stakeholders should have, my assumption was that they had been engaged, but clearly they had not done adequate consultation. And I'm sure we'll discuss how we should do it better in future.
Right.
But basically my view is that Parliament can make good laws if only the bills coming from government, because these are government bills. These are government bills. If bills coming from government, they go through a certain level of adequate consultation, there will be less debate in Parliament. There will be fewer stakeholders that will say it's a bad law. If the wording is not correct, if the meaning of the law is not correct, I think those are challenges that should have been attended to. And I'm sure as we go into the program, I'll be able to discuss what my proposals would be around the law.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you feel if this bill actually came from the people, the Zambian people itself, it would have made a lot of sense to amend it? Because like you're saying, there was no much sensitization or consultation even done before this bill was introduced in Parliament.
Well, let me give an example. I would have answered your question immediately, but I'll need to give an example.
Okay.
And I'll try and be very quick. You know that currently in Zambia, one of the things that can be used for you to access finance is obviously a copy of a title deed.
Right.
So there's been this huge drive by the Bank of Zambia, financial literacy. There's this huge drive by the Ministry of Finance that let's have financial inclusion. Financial inclusion, financial literacy would which would then give people more options of how to access money. People would then be more knowledgeable about money issues. So literacy issues and inclusivity issues. Now, currently there are financial institutions in Zambia that are ready to give money. They'll issue either a mortgage based on you providing title. Okay? So, one of the things that has been happening in the courts of law is that when there's a dispute over land ownership, people go to court, and then the court will say, well, as far as we are concerned, we think that this document was not properly acquired. Then systems just manage everything in a more legalistic manner. So would this issue have been handled better? Assuming the financial players had been consulted, Zambia Institute of Chartered Accountants, ZICA, held a press briefing. I don't know if it's today in the morning or yesterday. They said, look, we are in the money space. We are in the financial sector. A title is a key document to financial transactions. Can we consult further on how this could be done? Okay? So if it had come from ZICA, if it had come from the Law Association of Zambia, if it had come from the Zambia National Farmers Union, if it had come from ordinary citizens that would want more security on their ownership of land, Ruben I would not be seated here discussing Bill 13 as a bad law, because Bill 13 would have been structured around the feedback or the content that the people would have wanted to be in the law. So to answer your question here, people would have accepted Bill 13, which is an amendment to an existing law, on the understanding that they are the ones that are actually pushing that agenda. But clearly from the resistance, Christopher Kangómbe did not have to speak on this matter because there were already people talking about it. Right. I'm actually seated here not discussing anything new, because farmers said, no, I have 10 hectares of land. Another person claims he has 11. Someone sits in an office, cancels my title. It affects a lot of things around the business sector. So yeah, pretty much I think if it had come from the people, we would have had less discussions, less negative feedback.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about the disadvantage of granting, powers to the Chief Registrar of Lands. What is the disadvantage of handing over all of those powers to one person who is the Chief Registrar of Lands, to cancel certificates of title without even involving the courts of law?
Well, before we discuss the fear coming from people and the disadvantages, Ruben, are you aware that under the laws of Zambia, we have what is provided for as a Lands Commission?
Right.
Where we have the Local Government Service Commission, the people who employ workers in the council. We have the Emoluments Commission, the commission that determines conditions of service for constitution office holders. There's another commission in the law, which is called the Lands Commission. Now, the Lands Commission has not been
utilized.
It has not been established.
Okay.
So the Constitution says there shall be a Lands Commission that will deal with all issues of land. So constitutionally, there's even no need to grant those powers to a registrar. What is supposed to happen is the Lands Commission should be constituted. The President should constitute a team. The names come to Parliament for ratification. And then all these powers would go into that body where people sit, they receive petitions, they receive complaints from people, and then the law will be able to kick in. So what are the disadvantages? Well, stakeholders have, I'll keep relying on what stakeholders have said. Stakeholders have argued that there's a likelihood that one individual may not act in public interest.
Okay.
Because they already have the powers. So what happens if they have a personal interest in the matter? Who then fact checks what they are doing? The issue, I think, these are accountability issues. These are issues basically of oversight. That is the disadvantage. There will be limited oversight on the responsibilities of that office holder. If you have a good person in that office, yeah, that good person will act in good faith, will act in public interest. But let's assume we had a bad person in office. We can't assume that we'll always have the perfect human beings in public offices. So the disadvantage is that there will be limited oversight. And I think I'm happy that the minister today in Parliament took note of that submission from stakeholders.
Okay.
Because there's a report. What I'm saying is in the report. I'm not even a member of that of that committee. I didn't even have to debate in Parliament today because the report that was presented, and let me put it on record for those that may want to say, what is Christopher saying? The chairperson of that parliamentary committee is actually a member of parliament from the UPND. The composition of that parliamentary committee that rejected the bill, half of them I think are UPND, and then the chair who breaks the tie is UPND. So it's not like people sat in a corner and said, let's reject the bill. The MPs who are present recognized the pressure that came from people, from stakeholders. So, and one of the key issues is what you've raised, the disadvantages of one person having these huge powers to deal with such an important aspect of land tenure.
Indeed. You talked of sensitization not being very much, applied when it comes to people knowing about Bill 13. How best were we supposed to do this in terms of sensitizing the public on this bill?
Well, under the current provisions of the law, what I have noticed is that whenever there's a bill coming on the floor, there's always an assumption that consultation has been exhausted.
Has been done already.
Yeah, there's always that assumption. So what could have been done better? Number one, there should have been mapping where you map the stakeholders. You tell yourself, and there are not many stakeholders. I don't think this is something that requires a lot of work compared to Bill 7.
Okay.
Bill 7 obviously is a more detailed document. It's the Constitution of Zambia. The level of consultation should be more elaborate. But for Bill 13, which deals with powers of a registrar to cancel title and whatnot, that one would have just required mapping of the stakeholders. For instance, Zambia National Farmers Union, instead of them being included on the list of witnesses at Parliament to come and speak, they were brought in last. On the initial list, they were not there. But you saw the value of they contributed to the value of the debate. I think debates have to be objective. Whether you agree or you don't agree, let's stick to the issue. What could have been done better? Mapping of the stakeholders, Zambia National Farmers Union, who utilizes land in most cases. We have traditional land, we've got customary land, we've got state land. So obviously, the traditional leadership, the lawyers who will tell us the implication of the law, the Economic Association of Zambia who will tell us the impact of such alterations to title on the economy, the people in the banking sector, the financial institutions. We could have put 10, 15, maximum 20 stakeholders before the bill was drafted. So at a time of drafting, the cleaning up should have been done. Ruben would have had less discussions in Parliament because the cleaning up of the document should have been done before Justice drafted it. Or after Justice drafted it, they would have called in the stakeholders before the final bill is presented in Parliament.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel we have a lot of title deeds that were issued in error or fraud? If yes, what is the best way of handling this? Do you feel we still need an amendment for us to handle such, title deeds that were issued in error or fraud?
Well, we live in a society where even medicines are stolen.
Right.
Things that are supposed to cure our people. Our patients need medication. We have cases, we have the ZAMSA issue. That shows you that you can't assume that everything is perfect.
Right.
So I'm going to submit on the understanding that, yes, there have been cases where there are errors. That one middle name is missing. Instead of 3 names, maybe only 2 names are appearing. Maybe the property number has an error. Those are errors that can be corrected. And there's provision in the current law for correcting errors. There's no provision in the law for cancelling title. So how best do you correct these anomalies, errors, things to do with fraudulent activities? The law provides for a court process. I think there's precedence in the court judgment, I think I don't know if it's the High Court or the Supreme Court, that guided on what should happen when there's need to correct a mistake, whether willfully or something that was done intentionally or unintentionally. So the law currently provides for those provisions. The amendment was supposed to, I don't know if it's to provide, I don't know if it's a shorter route, but then the shorter route was going to give one individual more authority. 14 days after that 14 days window elapses, you find that your title is cancelled. So,
and you're notified in 7 days.
Yeah. So, what is the best way of doing it? Well, for now, there's a provision. A court judgment is what is being used as a law. But it's also important to note, Ruben, that even if we are trying to ignore what the Constitution of Zambia says, these are matters that actually should have been going to the Lands Commission. It is my hope that government is actually looking at how soon they can draft what is called enabling legislation, because when the Constitution says there shall be this commission, then there must be an act of parliament that should operationalize the commission. So one of the things I'm hoping that could be handled by government, the same Ministry of Justice working with Ministry of Lands, and also in consultation with the Republican President, is how soon do we get the Lands Commission in place, so that even this particular aspect, I'm not going to assume there's a bad motive. I'll be assuming. My assumption is that the same objective that government would want to achieve of ensuring that we have these corrections made could still be done through another avenue that gives stakeholders the assurance. The issue here is assurance. The assurance that if Ruben is Chief Registrar at Ministry of Lands, he will not wake up one morning at the instruction of another individual to cancel a title. That is the only, I think, gray area. If that issue could be dealt with, if the stakeholders that are handling the bill could deal with that particular aspect in a more encompassing way, I think we would not even have this conversation.
All right, let's talk about your proposals. What do you think should have been amended aside from cancelling of certificates of title?
Well, first of all, there was no need to amend the law.
There was no need.
No, there was no need. What is supposed to happen is that we should look at it holistically. The Ministry of Lands currently is working on, is receiving submissions on another law, the one which deals with land allocation. There's an activity going on right now where real estate agents are being consulted, local authorities are being consulted. That process has been ongoing, very elaborate consultative process. So what would be my suggestion would be, why not look at all these three things together? The Lands Commission, the Bill 13 one, which is dealing with the registrar, and then the third one, which is the Lands Act. So these three needs to be looked at holistically. I don't think we are late to actually go back and simply say, let's have a meeting with key stakeholders. I don't think we will never need to go the entire country. A meeting can take place where people speak to, this law should speak to this law should speak to this law. And we come up with an act that will bring into effect the Lands Commission. So in short, these three things need to speak to each other. So what should have been amended in the Lands and Deeds Registry Act? Well, amending that document would have just maybe focused on one aspect. But if we holistically want to deal with issues to do with land, these three things need to be attended to.
All right. Now, speaking of accessibility when it comes to Zambians, I know that only a few Zambians own land as of today. Do you feel there should be something done about accessibility? Is it very accessible to an ordinary Zambian out there to have land?
Well, I had this conversation in one of our WhatsApp groups. Like I mentioned last time I came here, we have a platform for sharing ideas on development. So we have people bring in different aspects. This person brings in. So we've created a platform. It's a WhatsApp group. There are about 3 WhatsApp groups where we float a topic and people give us views, suggestions. So one of the things that people have been raising is what you've talked about. How do we amend the Lands Act to increase access to land for Zambians, more affordable land and whatnot? So in terms of accessibility, I think there are efforts now to try and computerize processes to do with accessing land, digitalizing platforms, so that when a person applies for a piece of land, there's an online submission, you can't delete it in the system. There's a more transparent and public-friendly system. But you see, if we're going to do digital platform systems to do land administration, we need to ensure that people have access to internet. the system is running effectively. You don't want to go to Ministry of Lands, you find the system is down. So those are things, we have to do some housekeeping to ensure that the aspects of affordability of land, because access can't be access if we don't deal with the issue of affordability. And you know that affordable land means that this is land coming from government. Now, one of the things that has been problematic for many years has been, why do we have unplanned settlements in high-cost residential areas? So if you are coming into Kitwe, there's Mulenga compound. If you go if you go to Riverside in Kitwe, there's Kapoto compound. Those are next to high residential areas. Here we've got unplanned settlements that's over the years have been upgraded. So yeah, there's need to find a way to ensure that land is more affordable. So in terms of accessibility, we obviously need to review those issues. And those are the issues that are being considered under the Lands Act. There's an amendment that will become a separate issue from what we are discussing.
Okay.
Those are issues that are being handled under a different piece of legislation, issues to do with access.
In a short period of time, Honorable Kangómbe, we've seen about more than 3, if not 4 bills being introduced by the UPND government.
Yeah.
Why do you think they're in a rush to introduce bills or amend the law?
Well, I don't know. I can't answer for the ministries. The role of Parliament is to clean up laws, come up with new laws, repeal old laws, say this is a bad law, let's come up with a new law. So there's nothing wrong with bringing laws for amendment. I don't think bills in their actual meaning, it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing to bring amendments in form of bills. Bill 7, Bill 13, Bill 11. Every year of every session of Parliament, there are amendments. I also want some laws to be amended in my individual capacity. But you see, there's no provision which says don't bring a bill for amendment. Don't bring a law for amendment. What however, has been problematic is the feedback to the proposal. So the Bill 13, which was brought to Parliament, it appears rushed. Same bill, a wider majority, if it had started with the people. Because if it had started with the people, the stakeholders that I've referred to, I would be seated here saying that was the feedback, the report from the committee is that can we amend this provision, and the provision would have been highlighted. So in short, there's really nothing wrong with bringing bills for amendment, laws for amendment, provided you have, you can't of course carry everyone in terms of agreement. There will be those that will say, no, don't amend. So you then weigh. How many are saying we amend this section of the law? How many are saying let's maintain the law? And then you bring it to Parliament for adoption. Yeah.
You just said there's some laws that you would love to be amended. Are you in a position to share some?
Well, I've been drafting a few things. For instance, there's a bill that I've been working on. I hold the view that there are things to do with students, for instance, rights of students, the welfare of students in higher institution of learning. We're drafting something. I wrote Parliament that I want to introduce a bill on students' welfare, on rights of students. There are a couple of young men who are helping with understanding how times have changed in universities compared to when we were there. There's a young man, Lusekelo Kamfa, who has been providing a lot of information on what he believes and what other students believe would be a good law that will encompass the welfare of students. So there's already something we're drafting. Parliament has responded to my letter that can you provide further details to the law that you want to amend. That is one of the laws that I want to take to Parliament as a new bill. I also proposed another bill. I'd wanted to propose a bill that would holistically deal with issues to do with late payment to suppliers and contractors, both in the private sector and the public sector. The response again came that we don't need to introduce a bill because this is an issue which can be dealt with by Ministry of Finance. But Ministry of Finance, if they don't agree, it means that there will be no law. And that is why for me, I still insist that that law to deal with interest payment, if I'm a supplier, I've delivered goods to a mining company, I've delivered goods to government, and government doesn't pay me, interest should accrue. I know someone said, oh, but it must be in a contract. No, but if the law says so, everyone will comply with the contract. So there are a couple of things that I want to take to Parliament through bills. So there are private members' bills, and there are those bills coming from government that needs to be considered.
Mm-hmm. Now, the one that you talked about, the late payments when it comes to contractors.
Yeah, interest payments.
Interest payments as well. Because obviously, you know, if payment is not done, there's obviously the issue of inflation rate. Yeah. There's an issue of exchange rates and all of that. Value of the money as well. Now, do you think the government is not really looking at that? You know, especially when they said the Minister of Finance can actually deal with that. Are they dealing with that?
Well, so I was responded to. Remember, 3 months ago, I was on the floor in Parliament speaking on behalf of suppliers and contractors in Kitwe, in Chingola, and all these other mining companies. The phone calls I got from members of the public that, look, it's not just the mines that have a problem with paying. We also have government institutions that will tell you supply goods, but then they will not pay you for the goods that you've supplied.
On time.
And then yet you have borrowed the money to service that purchase order. So the response from Parliament is that you don't need a bill that should eventually become law to force any buyer of goods and services to pay interest if they delay to pay. The Minister of Finance is empowered under the regulations to write regulations to deal with that aspect. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm confident that when I write that letter to the ministry, they'll also respond that no, it will be based on the willingness of a supplier to wait. Now, you see, we want to protect Zambians. That is why, for me, I'm saying we can't leave it to regulations which are not there. If the law says you want a supplier to give you goods, you want a supplier to provide you services, if the contract says pay in 30 days, pay in 60 days, and you don't pay in that 60 days, interest will accrue as a way of protecting the supplier.
Right.
Because the supplier was probably borrowed money from somewhere. And now they're also panicking because they have to pay back. So interest is accruing on late payment by the supplier who borrowed money. And then the mining company that bought the goods is not paying you extra for the delayed payment. How do we cure that? We need the law. We need the law. Right. So despite the response from Parliament, I'll still pursue this matter. And I'm hoping that this could be done before Parliament is dissolved in the month of May next year.
Great. All right, dear viewers, you can start calling. I can see someone who's trying to call in. You can call back and we'll be putting you live on Millennium tonight as you come through immediately. The number is showing on your screen, so you can call and be part of the program. We are discussing the deferred Bill 13. Let's pick up this call. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, my brother.
How are you this evening, sir?
I'm okay. Honorable,
good evening, Moses, and thank you for calling in.
Thank you. I think I must say from the start that you are one of the inspiring members of Parliament that we have so far, very progressive. And I want to urge you to continue. I think you are very, very objective. Now, coming to this bill that has been rejected, why can't we have a system that allows for a feedback? For example, if I'm applying for a title deed from A, my area there in the Tauki, then that application should be maybe 1 month feedback from the people there in the Tauki who are against me applying for that title. Like what we do, what the council does, you know, when they want to do a construction, find that there is that poster where they say, if you are against this construction, then you can come forward. Or even when I'm doing a wedding, before I'm being wedded, the pastor would say that anyone
with reason,
can you lift up your arm? Why can't you have a system like that? Like, unlike giving powers to one individual. Where are we going? We are these individuals. We are all sinners, honorable. We are not angels. very difficult, and that kind of a system, I can assure you, it will be abused, and even those that are in government today, when they are out, even 2026, they can be out. It's possible. They will start crying foul. So, this is my contribution. Thank you, Honorable. I want to encourage you to continue. I really follow your debate in Parliament. I think it's very, very objective.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moses. We appreciate your call. Your reaction to that call, Mr. Kangómbe.
Well, what the caller is saying, what Moses is saying, is that to avoid duplicity of titles, or to avoid errors in wrong entry on title, why can't there be some form of public notice that the 1 month notice that the registrar will be issuing title, any concerns? Well, that will be problematic because others may lose the opportunity to secure finance. For instance, a title deed is a document you can use to borrow money to finance projects. Right. So if the period is too long, 1 month, you're applying for title and it takes 1 month for title to be processed, you may lose a business opportunity. You may lose money on a mortgage that you want to use maybe to build a property or to invest. If you are a farmer, you want to expand your farming activities and maybe the window is short. So you may lose that opportunity. So maybe a shorter period, maybe the proposal has to be digested. It is something that we'll need to look at. Currently, title is processed by Ministry of Lands. There's no timeline which says the title shall be processed after 6-7 days.
Should there be a timeline?
Well, from a service charter point of view, what's a service charter? A service charter is a commitment by a government entity to attend to a request from the community. The period should not be too long. Maximum to get a title should not be something, should not exceed 5 working days. Okay. In my view. But of course, we have had cases where most people complain that their title has not been
for a long time. Right.
But in my view, the service charter by Ministry of Lands should indicate what is the maximum period it should take to get, for instance, if it's at the registrar, passport, all these things, there must be some timeline that the service charter, where people can hold that government entity accountable. Yes.
All right. Yeah. All right. The line is still open. You can still call in. The number is showing on your screen right now. You can call back and be part of the program. I'm having Kamfinsa constituency member of parliament, Honorable Christopher Kangómbe, as we discuss the deferred Bill 13 and many other national
deferred
issues.
And not withdrawn. I don't know if we forgot to explain the differences. Because others are celebrating that it's good.
It's been cleared. No. Hello, you're live on Millennium tonight. We normally share to pay question at the more than national. Okay, Funyaniko volume ku TV wa Moses.
Okay, ngefuwa linko takweli kushona contribution. Yeku kutasha kofi wa kalamba wa Kangómbe. Okay, bala nchita inspire. Ese wa debate mu parliament. Ema ona report wefuwa ya. Mamona osa jaba maona le bugambye otwa mona balande evi yagobati tabile pangana mini mu parliament so baona le Kangómbe mupitirishe but ni nkwate ko question na contribution my question bali in a bill over the ushe mwena mungu abwino wa Kangómbe ero mule tontonkani aposhani kwanza namukumona kwandi one time bachifu chiwala kule kuma saiti district balisa ilishanya kupa mataito jijaya atama taito jijaya abantu waleze ndama taito jiji ngufu mamona so and then the government ngabale ko kusta intervene pali ilija shama taito yaleza ngwa dwaya kupoti and then ama court process wa mdala wani it take too long okuba twashirizo buita issue mamona so bachifu balisa lomba kuli government ndiyashi yapaliri imuteshani muliro keshepo pero kuna rapera kwa example kulapone kwa kuli bachifuwala yesu mwezo kwa habula matai kwali mpanga imoyo bashishepo bachifu abali kwa bakaramba umwa bamafamu ya abantu bapi bashisho kumufunga mamona so ayitangwa kwali saba manje kulya ekimpulunganya omusungu n'abantu obwasanga n'omusungu bamupeera title deed and then nshimule mumpangaira bwanikala abantu ab'emitana mwamona so enakira manjebere nga bajjamengi iro bapeera amakaguli ba chief registrar okwati batekita intervene
omuntu feoma
alango oja kubatula mu makooti and then mulefu amuteriza okuissue ya taking or 5 years kitwafuwa kwenye bakata mubona kimwe mukwani nakwisha ngombe.
Okay, Moses, Totela. All right, that is his submission.
Moses is raising the issue of how long it takes for a court process to be concluded. Okay, that's the issue he's raising.
Right.
Assuming there's a dispute over land, our courts move slow, setting date, trial, and whatnot, hearing both parties, filing of affidavits. Today the judge is not there. Maroba judge tabalipo. So we need to deal with the inefficiencies of the court. It is now the responsibility of the judiciary. Okay? You remember last year, I took to Parliament a proposal that those offices for legal aid, we can't have legal aid. Mufulira has no legal aid office. Legal aid is where you go as someone who can't afford a private lawyer, an expensive lawyer. You go to legal aid. It's a government institution.
Right.
Mwayaku legal aid, then legal aid gives you legal services. They stand for you. Legal aid is overloaded with work because once abantu bafuma okutali, they come into Kitu. Mufulira comes into Kitu. Kalulushi comes into Kitu. I took to Parliament a proposal that can we have legal aid offices in every district of Zambia? Meaning if you're in Kalulushi, there must be government lawyers that should represent you on issues that require judicial attention.
Within Kalulushi.
Within Kalulushi, okay? The reason why I brought up those things is because I want the court system to be effective. There's another bill before Parliament right now to increase the number of judges. Okay? No one has rejected. No one has said, don't increase the number of judges. Don't increase the number of officers to work in the judicial system. Because that will enhance efficiency of the court. The caller is saying, but how do we avoid these long processes of outcomes in court? Traditional land. Traditional land by its nature, customary land. You can't get title on traditional land if the chief hasn't given consent.
Right.
Just like mining. You can't get a mining license in an area where the chief has got jurisdiction without consent from the chief. So if that document is missing, the consent which should enable you get title as a private citizen, the court should establish. There must be a court process that confirms that muchine chakwalesa kwachiwala tabapokele permission kuri bashamfumu. The chief did not grant consent for you to process title. So to answer your question, to answer the caller's question, lengthy process in court against having one person called the registrar. The cure is the Lands Commission. The cure is to avoid all these challenges of do you go to one person who wakes up in the morning and cancels title, or do you allow the court to take this long process to settle a court dispute over land? Establish the Lands Commission, put it in place. The president will nominate names, Parliament will ratify the names, the commission will start sitting. They will now be dealing with those aspects. Be mindful that we want, the issue really is not that we don't want issues to be resolved in the quickest possible time. The issue is that do we entrust all this authority into one person, or we entrust this authority to deal with land disputes in a team called the Lands Commission, as provided for in the Republican Constitution? I think that is where the argument has been.
Okay. And Moses also indicated to say, are you happy that the bill has been deferred?
Yes. And I want to explain the meaning of deferment, because people may not understand what does it mean when a bill is deferred. A bill is a proposed law.
Right.
So in the 3 stages of making the law, if people or stakeholders have said, clean it up, include this, remove this, deferment allows for that process to take place. If there's resistance from a few people, from a few stakeholders, when you defer a bill, it means that you are going to clean it up. Now, depending on the consultative process that government will pursue and which stakeholders will be engaged and what will be the change in the wording, the bill can come back in its same format, but with that issue dealt with the aspect that deals with, do we give powers to one person or to a bigger group? So am I happy? I'm happy that the bill has been deferred to resolve the issue that key stakeholders have raised. Others have actually argued, if you followed the conversation, the members of the public are saying, look, we don't even need to defer this bill. What we just need is withdraw it, meaning it will no longer be in Parliament, go and establish the Lands Commission, all these powers to cancel title, give the authority to the Lands Commission. The Lands Commission will deal with matters case by case. If there's a dispute with the decision of the Lands Commission, then you go to court.
Okay. Yeah. More calls coming in, Honorable. Let's pick up this one. Hello, you're live on Millennium tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Give us your name and where you're calling us from.
This is your senior citizen, Fano Manga, original. Calling you from Shiruru here, sir.
Mr. Mangala, please go ahead.
Always a pleasure to hear from you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
First of all, I'm on deferred bill 13. I wonder whether I'm clear. Am I clear?
You're very loud and clear. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. For me, this bill that has been deferred, I've heard a lot of comments from various people. I understand the reason for deferring this bill. Some other people say it lacks consultation. The major stakeholders were not consulted. It also lacks transparency. Just like its cousin, Bill 7, there was no transparency. Maybe, in my own opinion, I strongly believe that a group of people sat down and decided. In so deciding, they had people that were targeted. Such and such on such a land, such and such on such a land. Let us have this bill so that we can actually get this land. Such a bill, surely, even to be deferred, I'm very unhappy. Why should we defer such a bill? What I would think must be to scrap it off. So that probably a certain date in next year is set for another bill of that kind. Not this one where we feel that some people have been targeted. We have heard a lot of stories about this bill. That's why people come so strongly to say, no, this bill must not actually save life. Again, in debate like the Bill 7, no. Because some people even call it not evil. It will bring war in this country. People are going to fight over land. This bill is evil. So why should you defer that kind of bill? Because it's known that it's targeting some people. Why should it be deferred? That's my first question. Secondly, Honorable Sir, you are such an inspiration to some of us. When we watch your debate in Parliament, we feel we have a president in this country, who tomorrow may be the president. Because you are so straightforward, very honest in whatever you say, and you don't speak outside some of these books that we have, like the Constitution. You have mastered the Constitution so much so that it's a book that probably I don't know how long it took you to know much of the Constitution. So one MD when you're debating, really, you go to the Constitution. And we find it very interesting when you debate in such a manner. I thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Senior Citizen Mwangala, there calling us. Yes, your reaction to that, Honorable?
Well, Mr. Senior Citizen Fano Mwangala was basically submitting that there was no need to even defer the bill. I think this is an issue we've discussed adequately.
Right.
The concern is really, do we empower one office? Yes, that office is acting in public interest. The assumption is that this person will do a good job in that office. They'll receive complaints that this title needs to be cancelled. But the principle is that what oversight will then be put in place if one individual has got all this overreaching authority. And what Mr. Mwangala says, why can't we have a different body to deal with those disputes of land? Okay, wrong title, error on title. And my submission is that the Constitution of Zambia provides for a Lands Commission. There's an amendment ongoing right now to amend the Lands Act. Stakeholders have given Ministry of Lands proposals on how the Lands Act should be amended. The same level of consultation should have applied to this Deeds and Registry Act, which deals with the powers of a registrar. So I want to repeat what I said earlier. Can the Lands Commission, the Act to operationalize it, can the Lands Act, can the Deeds Act, can all these be handled at once so that everything speaks to the Constitution, and then we have good laws to deal with errors on title, we have good laws to deal with cancellation of title. Literally everything could be done holistically once and for all.
Okay. And there's a part where he mentioned to say it could be that they are targeting certain individuals.
Well, I can't
you can't comment on that.
I can't comment. There have been comments that have been made by various stakeholders that is this bill targeted at any individual? I can't confirm or I don't know from what perspective. But these are things that are coming as feedback from our people.
Right.
I think for me, I'll stick to the issue. The issue is, if there's an error on a title, how do we correct it? The current law provides for amendment to title details. When there's need to cancel title, there's already a process that deals with cancellation of title. The court process may be too lengthy. What could be done in the short term? What could be the alternative? The alternative is, can we get the commission established, and then we see how we utilize more people sitting and deciding the merit of each case.
Okay. Yeah. Another call coming in. Hello. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, my brother.
Good evening. Thank you. Where are you calling us from? What is your name?
Thank you so much. My name is Mpande. I'm calling you from within Lusaka.
Mr. Mpande, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Mr. Kangómbe, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mpande, and thank you for calling in this evening.
Thank you so much. For me, I want to say this, that Mr. Kangómbe is one of the very few members of parliament that are so intelligent. And I can assure you that if the PF had adopted Christopher Kangómbe to be the presidential candidate, he may not have won the election in 2026, but I can assure you that 2021, the man was going to be the best candidate. Because when you talk about the intelligence, the man is very intelligent. And even when he debates in the National Assembly, one can tell that there's a member of parliament and there's an intelligent person who understands what he's saying. The man, there is no sarcasm in the man. The man is very sober. Even the debate, you can clearly see to say the man has researched on the matter. But today, in the Diggers newspaper, there was a headline saying the investors that are coming in is not as a result of the policy of the government, but because of the high copper price. I think on there, I want to know if truly what the Digger wrote is quoted from him, because I don't agree with that thought myself.
Okay.
Finally, let me also touch on the issue to do. I don't know if you touched on the issue to do with Edgar Lungu's funeral.
No.
All right, let me not go there. Okay. For me, I want to encourage Mr. Kangómbe to obviously, when that time comes to run for the president, I know the man is very intelligent and he can do better than those individuals that are masquerading and maligning themselves to take over TFI. Thank you so much, brother.
Mr. Mpande, thank you so much for calling. All right, obviously praise is coming in for you, Honorable Kangómbe.
I'm humbled.
Right.
Mr. Mpande raises an issue. It may not be the topic for
today.
But
maybe you can clarify.
But we have to honor his efforts to call. It's a public issue.
Right.
So Mr. Mpande raises an issue which I think another colleague did raise, the issue to do with if we get more investment in the mining sector, what would be driving that level of investment? So I've taken time to read some of the comments based on the issue to do with, does the price of copper influence whether an investor puts in more money in the sector or not? So if you look at mining is a long-term business. It starts with exploration. There are expenses at exploration. There are expenses at acquiring the license because you've already spent money at exploration. You are not going to invest if the price of copper is low. Okay? And now, what is a good price of copper? Others will argue 8,000, above 7,000, going up into 10,000. That sounds to be a good price of copper. If the price of copper is low, and this is my argument, Mr. Mpande, and maybe to my other colleagues that have queried me over my statement. My argument is that you can have these other enabling factors. For instance, mineral royalty tax is now being utilized as a cost when you are declaring your taxes to government. When mining companies are paying taxes, they now use MRT as a cost. So if that is the case, you may isolate it as a good thing for an investor. Then the investor says, because MRT now is tax deductible, I'm going to invest more money. But if the price of copper is low, it means that you are still going to produce a commodity whose value on the international market in terms of the selling price is still low. So my argument was trying to emphasize a point that apart from these other aspects that may look enabling, for instance, you don't want each year to change the tax regime. Okay? I was doing some research. Between 2008 and I think 2023, the tax regime was changed so many times. 2008, 2009 into 2023, there have been a lot of changes in the tax regime. Okay? When you have a stable tax regime, you then have predictability. Okay? So that is an enabling factor. It enables you to then decide as an investor that I'm going to put in money because you know what the tax regime says. So that is a good thing. But there will be a problem if, despite having all these things well laid out, the tax policy is clear, predictable, you're an investor looking for millions of dollars, you know this is a tax rate. It will be a good thing. But for as long as the price of copper does not remain at a certain minimum value from the cost structure point of view, you'll be reluctant as an investor to...
You won't be attracted to it.
Yes, there'll be other things that will make sense, but then you'll be telling yourself, but will I make my profit? Okay, I'm going to invest $300 million. When will I recover my $300 million? What is the cost of this investment in terms of the money that I'll reap from this investment? So my argument was that the price is still one of the determinants. Okay? And I know that colleagues who are in the financial space, the people that do projections, who calculate how much money should be made from this investment over 1 year. Do you put it in mining, or do you buy government securities, or do you put it in other forms of investment? There are experts that may provide us with more technical details. But for me, my argument is that you can have everything else enabling. But then if the price is too low, if you're going to get low investment, if you're going to get a low price of copper, how then do you push in the money that you want to push into a business when you know that the selling price of that commodity will be low? So maybe my acceptance of this conversation, I picked up the thought of a colleague, I think a Zambian who's based in America, another person called, texted, George Mutonga. He raised a similar issue. George raised a similar issue that, no, Christopher, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you that it's the price that's determining investment. There are other things that are determining investment. Well, I'm also picking his thought. For me as a leader in the public space, I'm very open to understanding what is this other thought that stakeholders are submitting. So George and Mr. Mpande, among others that may have a different view, as a policymaker, I hold the view that the price of copper is one of the determining factors.
One of the determining factors,
yes,
not the main.
For me, I'm still aligned. I'm still aligned to thinking it's the main. But you see, when you share a thought, and this is the country we want to build.
Exactly.
We want to build a country where we discuss issues.
Serious issues, actually.
If Christopher says the price of copper is what's driving investment, and someone holds a different view, like Mr. Mpande, like George Mutonga, they must be free to say, Christopher, we don't agree with you. And then we sit down and say, okay, if we have an enabling tax regime, okay, is that the only thing that will drive investment? Are you going to, if you are out of the country and you hear there's an opportunity to invest in the mining sector, are you just going to look at that enabling environment, the tax regime that is in the country? Or you also tell yourself, what if I invest my money and the price is not yet attractive? Would I still recover my money? So it's the country that we want to build. That's the country, that's the Zambia that I've been advocating for. A Zambia where we argue, we differ in opinion, but we learn from each other.
Exactly.
So I want to tell George and Mr. Mpande, if they hold a different view, I'm a very open-minded person in public service. I also have my own views. But if my own views need to be supplemented by more enriching details, provide those details. If not changing the tax regime every year will provide predictability to an investor, that we have to go for. But I want to insist, all things being equal, tax regime is stable, there's predictability, you're not changing things every other year, that's a good thing. If the price of the commodity
is not attractive,
because if you get 1 million tons of copper and the price is still low, you're still not going to get the returns on your investment. So I want to put it on record.
Not to cut you short.
To appreciate George and to appreciate Mr. Mpande for the views they've expressed. And I hope that we'll continue having these enriching conversations about our country. This is our country.
And not to cut you short, Honorable, I believe even as you are getting into a small business, you look at the profitability of that business, isn't it?
Yeah, you do.
Yes. For example, you want to start selling ifitumbua, and you look at the price that you're going to be selling your ifitumbua. If it's not attractive, obviously you will not invest money in it.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But I think the argument has been...
It's not the only thing.
There are policies that have to enable you to do that business. So my argument initially was that yes, we can say that the policies are good, but what about the projections in pricing? Okay, because copper is a commodity that has to be sold on the international on the London Metal Exchange price, if you want an indicative price. But also copper, sometimes like for the Chinese, they produce copper and sell it to themselves in China. So do they sell it at the London Metal Exchange price? They may have their own pricing. I remember Glencore used to sell their copper into Switzerland. Maybe they have their own pricing. But ultimately, I want to put it on record that the price of the commodity is a factor. You are producing 800,000 tons of copper every year. And then the price of copper is in a certain range. If the experts in the sector say the price will hit 10,000 or it will hit 9,000, you are compelled as an investor to say the projections look good. All things being equal, I hear that the price will reach 10,000. Let me put in more millions of dollars to get more copper and sell it outside. That was generally my argument.
Okay. Yeah. As we're ending the program, maybe we talk about food security. Yeah. Are you happy with the statistics of maize being bought by the Food Reserve Agency, and also the price of a 50 kg bag at 300? Yes, the floor price at 350 kwacha, 40 kwacha rather per bag.
Well, I have a view. My view is that if you want to deal with food security, first of all, you ensure that the minimum amount of maize that you need in your food sheds or the maize sheds is procured. So FRA has a target. They want to buy 540,000 metric tons of maize. I was in Parliament 2 weeks ago. I indicated, Madam Speaker, why is government buying only 500,000 metric tons of maize? What about the remaining 3 million tons of maize? Where will it go? Okay? Are we going to export all our maize out of the country? And as things would be, the FRA chairperson, board chairperson, announced that they've signed an MOU with Congo to export 1 million tons. So 3 million that has remained, you remove 1 million, you're remaining with 2 million. So will the 500 feed our people, provide all the other byproducts that come from maize to support the economy? And I've argued on the floor, and I'm hoping that government will not export every ton of maize that we've produced unless we are satisfied that from a food security point of view, we have enough maize. From other sectors of our economy that depend on that product will then be supported. And lastly, I don't support the idea that we should export the maize. I support the idea that if we have extra 500,000 tons of maize to sell into Congo, why not produce the Millennium locally? We produce maize, we produce the maize, we give the maize to the milling plants, they produce the commodity called Millennium, and then we export the final product. Bills would have been paid, workers would have been paid locally, jobs would have been created locally, the value chain would have been supported. That is my view.
And lastly, what do you make of the contradictory statements that came from, both FRA? Yes, because FRA, through their board chairperson, said 1 million we are ready to export and we've signed an MOU.
Yeah.
Then on the other hand, the Ministry of Agriculture came out to say no. They refuted those claims to say no, we are not actually, we haven't signed the MOU, but it is in the pipeline and we are considering to export. Do you feel there is uncertainty somehow in terms of issuing statements?
Well, the FRA is under Ministry of Agriculture.
Right.
To export maize, you need an export permit, which is a trade issue. That's under Ministry of Commerce.
Right.
Okay, so these are two ministries. One dealing with producing the commodity called maize, the other one dealing with the commodity called, dealing with export permit, meaning the document to enable you to export. So if they are saying different things, it means that maybe the conversation internally within government was not adequate around what do we do in the event that we have excess maize. What is excess maize? Is it 1 million? Is it 500,000? Those are things that I think internally they should be able to deal with. Yeah.
All right, Honorable Christopher Kangómbe, thank you so much for your time.
I'm grateful for inviting me.
We appreciate you coming through.
Yeah.
And dear viewers, as well as callers, thank you so much for coming through in terms of calls, and those that couldn't make it via voice calls, we hope that you will make it next time around. Tonight I was hosting Kamfinsa constituency Member of Parliament, Honorable Christopher Kangómbe. My name is Ruben Mwanza. We're back again tomorrow for another interesting edition of Millennium Tonight. Have a lovely evening. Good night.
Good night.